Now, firstly, I want to say that the abuse directed towards Anthony Taylor, one of our top officials, has been overstepped the mark. There's no doubt about that. His performance in the Europa League final was not only absolutely fine because he was dealing with a difficult situation, but the ramifications afterwards, the problems that came his way afterwards were disgraceful, scandalous, worthy of a very long ban for such behaviour. But it's worth pointing out that Jose Mourinho has been doing this all season. He spent the season creating the us against them sort of mentality. He's been sent off 3 times in Serie A. He's been finger pointing at referees all season. Now, firstly, referees get nowhere near the remuneration of a football manager or a player. The protection's not there, the support or any of the sort of comfort of adulation that Mourinho gets. They're very lonely, the officials. They've got the support of those who they work for and the people that work with them. But it's nothing like being in a football team where you have the support of your fans and the infrastructure around you. He did all right in the face of what was a dreadful game. Terrible behaviour. I thought he got the big decision over encroachment right at the end. I thought
the penalty.
I thought the VAR, the penalty shootout.
Yeah,
the encroachment was right, so he had to bring that back. But I thought the VAR would have given the penalty for handball because the ball strikes Fernando's arm. Roma wanted a penalty. I think in the Premier League, this isn't given because, believe it or not, yesterday excluded, we are a little bit more forgiving than our European counterparts. They just give everything, reds, everything in Spain, and penalties are like 5 times more frequent. But Stuart Atwell was in the VAR booth, and even that call, I think, subjective, okay, move on. Jose, I'm afraid, is talking absolute nonsense. You can try and defend the lead if you like and play anti-football, but it was you who messed it up. It's nothing to do with the referees. And you can't behave like that.
Well, I thought that both benches were pathetic. The way they carried on, there was like 9, 10 substitutes, whatever it was, all the staff out of the technical area, numerous occasions throughout the game. Ruined it as a spectacle, I think. Terrible example to show for young coaches, young players playing the game. That's how to act on the bench. Obviously, there's a lot on the game. It's a cup final, European Cup final. But for me, I mean, it was so inflammatory, Jose Mourinho. That video we seen.
Oh yeah.
I think it was in where underneath the ground where where the car park is. I just thought that was horrendous, and I think he should be fined for that, and he should have to not so much just fined. I think he should have to miss games.
Yeah,
he needs punishment.
Man.
Yeah,
well.
he needs punishment.
Not
for
even
that.
just a ban for the touchline. He needs to be banned from the ground for a couple of games for a long time, actually, to send a message that you cannot do that.
I understand that me against the world mentality. I think you've got to have that.
Level, though,
of course there is. And the behaviour was just unacceptable, not just from his bench, but also from the opposition's bench. And it was a poor spectacle because of it. And it took away from, the boys on the pitch actually trying their best to win a football match. And, when you see the scenes with Anthony and his family going through the airport,
that's disgraceful.
Any family man will look at that and think, wow, that is unacceptable. And it certainly is, and I think that's why the punishment's got to be there.
Okay, the penalty in the 100th FA Cup final, the 100th anniversary of the FA Cup final being at Wembley. The penalty against Jack Grealish that Manchester United equalised from. Well, in real life, this isn't a penalty, right? But
we're not in real
under
life.
the law, and more importantly, its guidance that officials receive on the application of the law, it was always going to be given. Why? Because this is what the law says. It is an offence if the player touches the ball with their hand or arm when it has made their body unnaturally bigger. A player is considered to have made their body unnaturally bigger when the position of their hand or arm is not a consequence or justifiable by the player's body movement for that specific situation. By having their hand or arm in such a position, the player takes the risk of their hand or arm being hit by the ball and therefore being penalised. Now, the guidance has always been that if the arm is above the head, it's making that player unnaturally bigger and will be deemed as an offence. Now, if you look back at the replays, when the frame is stopped as Aaron Wan-Bissaka heads the ball, the arm of Jack Grealish is actually low. When the point of contact with the ball is made, his arm has gone up, and that blocks the ball. Now, we know, we're not stupid, we know that in real life, that's not a penalty. That is not what we want to see penalties given for. No chance, never, ever do we want that to be a penalty because it's so soft, it's unreal. But in the law that IFAB, not VAR, this is not their problem. This is not a problem for the PGMOL and Howard Webb. This is the IFAB law, the International Football Association Board, that set the laws. The laws are so prescriptive that they have to give handball for that. If that had been in Spain, I doubt you would have been in the VAR. They would have just given it straight away.
The law needs changing because when you talk about a player, Jack, in this instance, jumping for the first ball, so forget about the header, he's competing for the first ball in, the cross. He's trying to get his head on it. Now, when he misses that and slightly goes off balance, his natural body mechanics come into play to keep his balance from going on his backside. His arm comes up to balance himself. Now, he's probably a yard, not even a yard from Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Aaron Wan-Bissaka has kept it alive to put it back into the box and it's clipped his fingers. By the letter of the law, it's a penalty, but in any sane person's brain who watches football, that is not a penalty.
So you're not having a go at David Coote?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I think if David Coote makes the call, which is the right call, not to give that penalty, then I think
he's going to get himself in a world of trouble.
That's the problem. Because the rules and the law states that he has to give a penalty there.
I totally agree with you. The only thing I would say is that the unnatural movement of the arm...
It's not unnatural.
This is it. That's a subjective call, right?
So it's not if you understand body mechanics.
Okay. But by the very fact that he's been drawing the referee over to the monitor, it's subjective in the fact that he thinks it is a deliberate act and making his body unnaturally bigger, and you don't. So it's subjective because you two disagree.
Absolutely.
Right? So we all have a different opinion on it. And if you have a different opinion on it, it's therefore subjective. Now, that means that Paul Tierney, who didn't see it, didn't make a clear and obvious error. Now, I think what the PGMOL would say if you ask them is that, well, did it make contact with the arm, therefore it's a matter of fact. But there is subjectivity in the decision because David Coote has decided that movement has made it unnaturally bigger. He's called the referee over, which he should only do if he's certain it should be overturned. The referee's looked at it and made a decision that it was indeed handball. So I wonder whether or not David Coote should have called him over because there was a grey area as to whether or not it was or wasn't. Maybe they had a conversation about it. I did have the VAR in my ear, actually, so I could hear them sort of saying, can you stop the game and have a look at this decision, etc., etc.
Which means it's a penalty, and you need to look at this.
I knew it was going to be a penalty from the minute I saw the VAR replay because understanding the law of the game the way it's applied now, you just know that that's going to be given, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and I'll go back to my first point. I think the law needs to be changed. It's stupid. I mean, if there's 3 or 4 yards between the two players, Wan-Bissaka heading the ball, and then by the time it comes back, Jack Grealish's hand is in the air and it hits his hand, it's a penalty.
That's it.
He's right next to him. As he jumps for the first ball, he then gets knocked off balance, keeping his balance, his arm comes up to steady himself, and it hits his arm. He's right next to him. There's no way that was intentional.
That said, thank God that they did get the penalty. Because it made it a much more competitive game for a little while, which is great.
I mean, we mentioned it, and Terry mentioned it earlier. I don't think Manchester City got into their natural flow, and that's compliment. I have to say that's compliment to Manchester United and the players.
Manchester United actually reacted well to going behind, they did. And then dragged themselves back into the game. They didn't have too many opportunities, did they, in that first half? But that was certainly one of them. Final thing on Men in Black this week: is 30 minutes of extra time too long, and should we just get rid of it?
I'm not a massive fan of penalties.
Are you not?
Yeah, because I think there's so much pressure on the players.
Have you missed the big one in your career?
I haven't, no, but the abuse the players get from that, I think you should give them the opportunity, and because of the squad sizes as well, give them the opportunity to win it in a normal...
Trevor, we're always moaning about the fact that players play too much football, the welfare of the players, they need recovery time. You know what you're like with your certain amount of periodisation and training and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You're very big on that. The idea...
But you've got 5 subs. You can change half the team.
Yeah, half the team. You can get, you can have an extra one, can't you? An extra time as well, so you have 6. If you've got no need... There isn't any need for extra time now, because if you look at the game... I was watching the game between Carlisle and Stockport.
Yep.
And the game between... even the game between Sheffield Wednesday on Monday that I went to, and Barnsley, and the game between Luton and Coventry last weekend. I mean, it was pointless. I mean, okay, I don't want to rob anyone of that Josh Windass moment because that was just absolutely outstanding. But they were all cream cracker during extra time. And it just became... You were actually in danger of a game being decided by a mistake because of the fatigue that set into the players. The EFL Cup has been brilliant over the last few years where they've got rid of extra time
so
in the
much
early
riding
rounds.
on it, though, in playoffs.
Yeah, I understand.
And you look
that.
at, you know,
I
you look
understand
at,
that, but if you know the drill, you know the drill, right?
Of course you do. And you look at the player.
Could you shorten it? 15 minutes? Just make it 15 minutes?
Golden goal.
I love golden goal. I thought golden goal was brilliant.
I think that's a better way to decide it than penalties.
That got kiboshed because TV companies couldn't work out their schedules because you didn't know when the game was going to end, which I don't think would be the case now. Now no one really cares about that. You could easily fill the airtime.
And you look at the boy that missed it for Coventry as well, and a couple of days later he got released. I mean, what a difficult situation for him as well.
Terrible.